Hello everyone, welcome back to Slouching Towards Bedlam. Last time we listened to the phonographs and we figured out how to get codes for the archive. So in the Panopticon, if you push triangle, it prints out a code for the folder for that room if there is one. And we got codes for 3 of the rooms. We got codes for C, which is the one with this big hole in the center everything is collapsing in on. Room D, which had the writing on the wall, which I believe the patient was in before, and E, where the viewer is shattered. So right now I have the folder for room C, and we'll start out. Let's just examine the folder. The file is fairly brief. It only covers a single night of Emmanuel Bartholomew spent at the hospital. The paper is written by Dr. Simon Brand. Apparently, there's been a mix-up in the system, as Bartholomew is listed as being kept in the lower rather than the upper quarter 6, room C specifically. Yeah, if you remember, in one of the cylinders we listened to, I guess, Bartholomew was executed, right? And there's a bunch of, celebration around it. Bartholomew is being held under suspicion of murder of 2 men, Collard and Moore, which occurred in Warren Street, Fitzroy Square. The case is listed as customary. Bartholomew being held under observation for 24 hours to prove or disprove his insanity. Brand's final conclusion is that Emmanuel is fit to stand trial. Okay, can we read folder, or is that all we get? That's all we get, it looks like. What do I do with it now? Give folder to pyramid. Give file to pyramid. I guess we can just keep it. That's, I'll keep it for now. If the system complains, then we'll give it back, I guess. But let's look at room. I should write, I probably won't matter that much, but I'll write down here that room C belonged to Bartholomew. And I'm guessing the hole in the room is symbolic of him somehow. I guess we'll learn more about that later, right? First off, let's load up the code for D. So we turn dial to F. Then 6. Then A. 1. 4, 2. Once again, the pyramidal thing leaps into action, retrieving a file from a drawer far in the distance. The tape advances. It now reads retrieval complete. Take file. It's Cleve Anderson. File F6A142, Cleve Anderson, taken. Examine file F6A142. Oh, this is a whole thing. The file is broken into several sections. Personal information, patient history, initial diagnosis, and personal notes from March 3rd through 9th, with addendums on day 7 and 8. I guess we'll start with the personal information, right? Patient name, Cleve Anderson, age 23. Physical description, 5'10", 12 stone. I think that's 240 pounds, would that be? I don't know. I don't speak British. Gray eyes, brown hair. Distinguishing marks. Small burns on palms and inner forearms. These should heal within a few weeks. Possible scarring? Residence, 1428 Fleet Street, 2nd floor loft. Possessions, money, a few pound notes, a key, and identification papers. Alright, let's go to patient history. Arrival date time. I'm guessing that's March 2nd, 55 at 11 p.m., 2300 hours, if you want to call it that. I don't know. 23 o'clock? I don't know how you would say that. Processing, James Houlihan. Attending alienist, Dr. Thomas Xavier. I believe they mean alienist, that was the old name for psychologists, right? Just kind of a funny term. Depositing, transporting, Unlisted. Patient arrested for disturbance of the peace. Neighbor described screaming and raving at all hours. Found comatose in his flat. See personal information. A book in transit, mostly compliant though some resistance. Completely silent, refused to answer questions. Diagnosis, for specific C attached. Dissociative disorder, acute schizophrenia with paranoid tendencies. Does not, however, seem dangerous to himself or others. Prognosis, to be kept under observation until such time as attending alienist decides on further treatment. Uncertain of necessary duration. Departure date time, March 10th, 5:50 a.m. So that's like 8 days later. Status deceased. That's not good. Please press space to continue. Alright. So he was there for 8 days. He died for some reason. Not clear yet. Initial diagnosis. Maybe the personal notes will clear that up. But initial diagnosis reads 2,300 hours. Patient initially in comatose state. Initial brief physical examination reveals bruising along the upper arms and temple, and burns on the palms and inner forearms. 2330. Patient awoken via the use of smelling salts. Immediately catatonic, unresponsive to physical and auditory stimuli. 2350. Patient physically responsive to stimuli, though eyes are unnaturally dilated. Seems to be uncertain where he is. 2355. Patient allows a more thorough physical examination. Seems to be suffering from symptoms in line with shock, exposure, and exhaustion. Constantly shivering as if from cold. 2,400 hours. Patient still refuses to speak. Examination of tongue throat reveals that he is physically capable of speech. Violently shakes head when asked to do so, otherwise compliant and non-violent. Refuses to make any noise whatsoever, even to say "ah" during examination. Possible phobia towards noise? Seems fine with others making sound. Bite marks along inside of cheek and along tongue. Possibly epileptic. Alright. And then I guess there's nothing left to do but just go through the personal notes, starting with March 3rd, the first day. Patient placed in 6D and have made sure to retain the only key to corridor 6. D seemed the best choice. All in all, at least it's structurally sound. Several of the rooms have completely collapsed. Patient completely compliant, no struggling whatsoever. He even seemed to calm considerably once led through the panopticon to his room, went to sleep almost immediately. Checked on the patient early via prism, still sleeping. Went in with breakfast and a sheaf of papers. Asked him if he knew how to read as he ate. He laughed, a short bark. His response to this was immediate, a look of horror and both hands clamped over his mouth. Brief panic attack, heavy breathing. Calmed down soon after, nodded and gestured for the papers. Communication via writing for about an hour. A very basic answers to questions. Who are you? Name. Where do you live? Address. What do you do? Occupation. A mechanic's assistant. Refused to answer any deeper questions. Simply stared. Alright. March 4th. Some progress made, as the patient is at least answering questions from a conversation this morning. Do you know why you're here? Penance. He writes in the same style as triage, I notice immediately. Like, it's formatted the same, which is interesting. I don't know if that's just a formatting quirk or if that's meant to mean something. What do you mean penance? Have you done something wrong? Hubris. Pride. You think you're here because of your pride, Cleve. What were you proud of? Patient stared for a long time before writing, doing something no one was meant to do. What is it, Cleve? What was no one meant to do? No response. Night. I made the mistake of leaving a pen in the patient's cell. Returned to find a series of words engraved into the wall. It must have taken hours. Confiscated what barely remained of the writing instrument. Patient refuses to talk about what he wrote. That's what we saw in the cell. It's some like Kabbalistic metaphor. Triage was able to translate it, although I would have to reread or go through it to remember what exactly it meant. Regardless, we can move on to March 5th. Wheels within wheels within wheels. The patient has built a complex inner world for his delusions to play out within. Complex and self-referential. At least part of these delusions revolve around an unseen they, a shadow group that is paradoxically powerful and weak. Powerful enough to control the world, but so weak that Cleve was able to steal their secrets like some modern Prometheus. They had brought me here. Who did Cleve? They control everything. Who are they? Where are they? Even here, they controlled the one that came before you until... Patient stopped at this, looked unsure. The one that came before me? Who do you mean? They controlled who until what? Patient seemed to come to a decision. They killed him, you know? Tried to speak at this, but he kept writing furiously. Had him killed. I listened. I spied. They never knew I knew. I don't understand. They'll control you, too, soon. No, they won't, Cleve. You can trust me. Patient almost smiled at this, then seemed struck with fear and melancholy. No, they won't. Right, Cleve. Patient shook his head fiercely. My hubris may kill us all long before then. Someone who came before me, someone who is dead. Could he possibly be referring to Dr. Brand? March 6th. Yesterday's push seems to have been too much. Patient upset most of the day, crying, though still silent. The only event of notice happened when I brought dinner. I placed the tray down and attempted to get his attention, repeating his name several times. It apparently made him angry, and he seemed for a moment about to yell when he caught himself and grabbed a piece of paper. Not Cleve. You're not Cleve? Who are you then? Not who? Not who? You're not who are you? Alright, what then? What are you? Patient seemed taken aback by this question, thought a long moment, and wrote, something new. And how did this happen? How did you become something new? A look of utter disgust crossed his face. Infection. The patient refused to answer any more questions. Alright. On to March 7th. Complete change in mood again. Possible mood swings. Entered patient's cell to find him awake, alert and rather happy to see me. Immediately signaled for pen and paper. Patient proceeded to write a long, rambling message, thanking me for my understanding of friend conversations we never had, but that were eerily probable. Tried explaining to the patient after reading it which portions had happened and which hadn't. Effective comment was almost immediate. Confusion, sorrow, and understanding. Patient began nodding and almost laughing with a sardonic smile on his face. Asked the patient to explain what had happened. Did he now understand the difference between the things that happened in real life and the scenarios he played out in his mind? The patient stared for a long moment before writing, almost angrily. Is your magnetophone still broken? My magnetophone? How'd you know I was an atheist, Cleve? I never mentioned it. A different you did, then, to a different me. A different me, Cleve. Well, he was wrong. It's not broken. Its signal is just not strong enough. A look of confusion and fear from the patient, then... You didn't say that last time. Last time? Patient's hand was shaking as he wrote. Something has changed. This exchange broke something in the patient. In a rush, he began writing, trying to explain at least part of his delusions to me in detail. I have tried to summarize my understanding of it as best I can. The patient has, in his mind, somehow come unstuck in time. He speaks of it as if it were a malleable thing. He mentioned several times in his notes to me that he could save moments, as if in a delaying glass. He kept several of them with him and restored them as he wished, reliving the past, present, future. Okay. Alright, I'll talk about that in a moment here. When asked about a different me, he replied that he'd tried restoring several times, changing them, seeing different paths that resulted. This, he said, was the best he could find. I asked him if he had saved a moment before this all happened, before his infection, back when he was simply Cleve. He said he'd restarted from time to time, but it only took him as far back as his new creation. The patient refused to speak any further of this infection. Please press space to continue. Alright, so, running low on time, so we'll have to read the last of Cleve's file and get the other file later. But it seems what's happening is that at least it's a commentary on adventure game characters, like either like the infection is Cleve getting like possessed or controlled by a turned into the player character of some adventure game. And that's not only is that the whole saving thing, I believe that's also why he can't speak, because oftentimes, right, in these games, you'll type in a command to speak, and then it'll show you how people react, so you never actually see yourself speaking. I believe that's a play on that. The fact that he knows things he can't implies that this is like a real meta thing and not just his delusion, although it could just be coincidence, I guess. And us getting infected too is us becoming the player character, I believe. That's the idea, is that like when he died, we as the character, as the player, moved on from Cleve to I always forget the name of the person we're actually playing as, but I believe that's what's happening. And the idea is that he doesn't want to infect, he doesn't want us to be able to control James after the game ends. So theoretically the game will end with us doing something because like when the game ends, we as players will not be able to control anyone else anymore. So I'm guessing it'll end with him doing something to like end that. Something ritualistic or something from within the narrative. That's what I guess. Like I said, I'm playing this blind. I don't know any of this for sure. That's my kind of initial thrust at what's going on. Well, I guess we'll read. There's plenty more to read and see if I'm right or not. But that's something we will have to do next time. Although, I notice here, as the file is closed, something nestled within its pages falls to the floor with a loud clang. I just noticed that. Let's look at the floor. Take all. Large iron key. Taken. Examine key. Examine large iron key. Look at iron key, an old-fashioned rusted iron key. Alright, well, in any case, we will save here, and next time we will carry on, I guess. I'm starting to see like a narrative, a vision, themes kind of coming through, so that's fun. And next time, hopefully we'll see more of it, so look forward to that. For now, we will call it here, and as always, thank you for watching.